Greetings, epic adventure seekers. Welcome to your guide to demystifying your world. I'm Allie Bierman, and you are listening to Let's Get Metaphysical, connecting heart and mind. Today's guest is Anaiis Salles, a self-taught energy practitioner and modality innovator. Before jumping in, I have a quick question for you. Do you wish and hope your world looked different than it does? Have you tried using affirmations to change your life but failed to see any difference? Well, I have a quick guide to get you started with what actually works. In fact, because we're addressing your subconscious, and that's where the change has to happen, the link for getting it will be in the show notes. Anaiis was born with access to soul memory. Multiple cities guided her to her full awakening in 1989. With her inner-directed training, she blossomed as a hands-on healer. Anaiis facilitated an international internship collaboration with Russian physicians. Her hands-on healing of critically burned individuals and children with cancer were medically verified and documented, leading to collaborations impacting lives in Russia, Germany, Greece, Israel, England, Scotland, and the United States. Anaiis works one-on-one with clients and also teaches energy medicine strategies, personal growth workshops, and retreats. She offers a 3-year certification in advanced healing techniques in the United States, a holistic product innovator, a certified bioenergetics practitioner. She's the author of The Living Spiral Transformation. Discover the hidden powers of your diverse, unique DNA. Looks like we are in for an exciting awakening today. Welcome, Anaiis, to our show.
Ollie, I appreciate that.
I'm so excited to go on. Let's move forward. For our epic adventure seekers who may not know what cities are, could you please share that relationship, how it worked for you?
I would like to recommend a book that was recommended to me when I had my formal awakening, and that is by Gopi Krishna. So if you go and you search Gopi Krishna on Google, you'll get access to his book. A siddhi is considered to be a unique spiritual gift. In Eastern culture, it is considered a spiritual gift. It is not a psychic gift. So this includes the ability to be clairsentient, clairvoyant, so to see energy, to hear energy, to be able to recognize energy in the body, to see the structures within the body. Perhaps one has a capacity to journey out of the body, which I have, to bilocate, which I have. I can be, literally, people have written me that they so enjoyed having lunch with me in Russia when my physical body was in the United States. So that is what a siddhi is. These are spiritual gifts which allow a person to share the beauty and joyful aspects and healing aspects of consciousness with fewer limitations than most human beings have right now.
So when you say you're self-directed as a healer, could you please tell us how you discovered your gifts and started using them?
I became aware of my gifts as a child. And I had little experiences. They were moments of like, ding-a-ling, just notice this. And I would notice. And then I was I did a lot of art and music as a child. So then I would go and I would spend time in my room and I would just explore within, asking questions. What was that? What does that mean? What just happened? And that helped me to stay grounded as these things unfolded. But I was telepathic with my family. I could hear what my parents were thinking. I could recognize what they were thinking and what they weren't saying. And then I would call them out and say, but that's not what you really mean. What you're thinking is boom, 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 boom. And my mother was saying to me, you absolutely cannot do that. And I was like, why not? True. So I gradually, then I had out of the body journeys. I bilocated once to do a healing for an upstairs neighbor. I was living in Melrose Park, PA. I hadn't seen my neighbor Bill for a couple of days, but I was preparing dinner, and a really distinct and different sensation came over me, and I thought it would be a good idea to lie down. And then I did. And then I could feel my consciousness, almost like the way a camera lens open, like the aperture opens to let in different level of light. And then I realized that I was standing on a roadside by an accident that had just happened. And I was looking around and looking at the trees, looking at the landscape, trying to place where my consciousness was, where I had gone out of body to this location. And I was standing by a car that had been a head-on collision, and there was a woman in the front, and she had two girls in the back. And I stood there and I talked to her. I said, you're going to be fine. Everything's fine. Help is on the way. Just relax. I'll stay here with you till help comes. And then at the other car, there was another person standing with that driver who was deceased, right? And so this experience went on until help did arrive, physical help did arrive. And then, like a camera, the aperture withdrew and closed, and then I was back in my body. Now, I thought, that was interesting. I wonder what that was all about. Well, 2 days later, knock on the door is my neighbor, Bill. I said, Bill, where you've been? I haven't heard you, moving up and down from your apartment upstairs. He said, I was just in. I said, you were in upstate New York, where your sister had an automobile accident, and your sister and her your nieces were in the car. And he looked at me and said, that's exactly what happened. How could you possibly know that? And I said, well, I was there, Bill. So just having that much of a friendly connection with Bill in a time of need for his family took me there. And I would get those things would happen, and I would get a validation every single time from somebody who didn't know me or didn't know me well. And that eventually led to an out-of-body experience where it was made clear that other things would develop, and then I should just stay really relaxed and never get too excited about any of it. So that eventually led me to an experience in 1989. And at that time, I had a full awakening in which, if you're familiar with any of the concept of energy bodies or chakras, every chakra in my body opened completely, and all of the organic flows that we should all have access to, but we don't for a variety of reasons, all began to flow. I had no idea what this was. I didn't know what a chakra was at this point. Consciously, this body did not know what a chakra was. But I also was given time during that. It couldn't have taken more than 60 seconds when a little silver gold ball of light, I could see it at the base of my spine from within. I was like, oh, what's that? Shoom. I put my attention on it. It shot straight up my central vertical channel, up through my pineal gland. Pow. Big white explosion of light. And then I was in an environment with other beings, and I was being educated. And they were showing me, it was like a Rolodex. It was like a slideshow, one after another, of experiences that I had had in other environments, just lots and lots and lots of them, until I said, hey, what's the point? You got a point here? Otherwise, I'm not interested. What's the point? And then they said, well, the point is, and I was like, okay, that's a point I can deal with. So then it was made clear to me all the missing pieces, the little things that had happened. The whole book was opened up. And so people who are aware of this today would say that I was simply given a personal tour of my Akashic record by people who were protecting me, monitoring me, and guiding me. And I call them people because to me they are organizations of conscious information, and for me that constitutes a person.
Wow. How old were you that you were able to not be weirded out or say, I'm imagining it or something like that?
From the beginning.
Okay, so it was normal for you that that was how you function in the world. And it was okay if it was different from the rest of your family.
And I didn't talk about it. I knew I was clear to me not to really overly talk about it. Just notice it, do it, accept it, don't make a big fuss about it, but tuck it in my back pocket and remember it and notice that it had happened. And the validations were incredibly important to assure me that I wasn't in fantasy, that I wasn't crazy. The validations from other people were real. I had lots and lots of those. Lots.
That's incredible. I remember when Shirley MacLaine wrote and released her first book, Out on a Limb. I was so grateful because I had had all these different kind of experiences that I could never talk about. And I was in, I don't know, my 20s, maybe my 30s. And I thought, oh, I'm not weird. This happens to other people. None of us talk about it. So I get that. Now, I noticed that one of the, I love some of the stuff and the points you make in the language you use on your website. It's very empowering and conscious and awakening. And one of the things you said, to get people to take their first step, that first step needs to be dare to commit. And I know if I'm working with somebody and I don't hear the commit in their voice, in their word choice, I don't think I want to be working with them. So how did you come to have those powerful words on your website?
I'm very happy to use language as a way to communicate energetically. We do it all the time. We don't necessarily do it as consciously as we have to learn to do. But to commit means to say yes in a full body way to an intention or a desire that is coming from the deepest part of you. And it's usually something that sparks. It could be playful. It's usually not a big deal. It could be just one little thought. When you say, oh, yes, I noticed that little thought. That little thought makes me feel something here. My whole body vibrates with energy from that thought. That's the beginning of the action of committing to the desire and the intention. When you commit, you are creating a focal point for the co-creative energies that will bring that little desire into physical matter. And if you don't commit, it doesn't happen the way you intended to. It can be a mess. It can get lost. It doesn't ever happen. So being able to commit is key to being the focal point for the creative energies that will allow that experience to come into matter so that you and others can enjoy it.
That's really, really powerful. And I got to tell you, that was an awakening and a light going on for me. And I want to follow up on that in just a minute. I'm going to take a quick sponsor break. You got to ask questions. It's a book I wrote many years ago that I actually sold just for the book, $97 because of what's in it. And now I'm offering it very special offer for you, my epic adventure seeker, that I also went and made the audios for it. So I have a special offer of that book and the audios. The link will be in the show note. And now I said I wanted to get back to what we were talking about before. What you said and the way you explained it, I know so many times, like I'd follow Napoleon Hill or somebody else and writing out my goals. and I wasn't committing to them. And I never got that until the way you just explained that. So anything to which I've not committed, I haven't followed through. Whereas I commit to everything in my health. I mean, I do my blessings and my gratitude and my qigong and my workouts and all of that. I'm committed to my health. Nothing stops me. But in all these other ways, that's always been missing for me. I'm so grateful that you shared that with me. And I'm assuming that you've seen it in clients with whom you've worked that clarified it for you.
Yes. It was interesting because when I was working with burn and cancer patients in the Soviet Union as it was collapsing, the ability to commit is absolutely aligned with the capacity to receive. So I think that's a really good takeaway for your audience. And I observed when I was working, I would be assigned different patients to work with, and some were able to commit to the relationship with me just a few minutes out of their day from a sense of trust and from a deep desire to be healed of their burns. And so because of that, we were able to create a relationship in which that was allowed to unfold, and all of the energies and frequencies and intelligence and everything that they needed showed up for them. I was part of showing up for them. I wasn't doing it to them. I was part of showing up for them from a very clear heart space. Now, one interesting, his name was Sergei, and he had been, Zhenya. Zhenya had been burned over like 50% of his body. He'd had multiple skin grafts. And I worked with Zhenya, and he was very available. He asked me, "Are you extrasense?" And I was like, "Well, Zhenya, I'm not sure what you mean by that, but this is what I'm able to do," right? But there was a man in the bed behind me because I would be working with my back to this other patient, and when I was working with Zhenya. And I just did my thing. And 2 weeks later, this young man in the bed behind, I came into work with Zhenya, and he walked up to me with his wife, and they were glowing. They were so happy because he was going home. And he had a bouquet of roses, and he handed me the roses. And I said, "Well, my goodness, that's so kind of you. What is this for?" He said, "Oh, I felt the energy coming off of your back when you were working with Zhenya, and I decided to accept it. And I'm going home now months ahead of schedule. And I know why. And I want to commit. Say yes." Okay? Commitment is equal to your capacity to receive.
That's, I'm in tears here for that. And it also, what's coming up for me is when I worked in crisis care as a psychotherapist, if somebody was going off, I don't remember what weird term they used, but it was somebody who was going into a dangerous state. And they'd call me, and I would just walk into the room. I didn't have to say a word, and the person would calm down. So energy is really, really real, and that's something that I want so much for everybody to be paying attention to, because that's what's impacting your life. That's what's driving your choices. That's what's driving. Listen to what Anaiis says about how the healing happens, and what's really key is coming from your heart, not your mind. When people say, picture it in your mind, you got to start in your heart. And I see you nodding. And would you elaborate on that in your experience?
I'd be glad to. If we just take the basics of our human anatomy, the heart puts out a sound that we can all hear and feel loved up, loved up, loved up, loved up. I have no idea how important and empowering that single sound is in terms of what happens in our lives. Meanwhile, the nervous system is secondary. It's important and it functions and it carries light, energy, and information as nerve impulses through the body. But in healing, I worked with a young man named Sergey, who third degree burns of both of his hands in an industrial accident. And he asked me to come with him to the debriding procedure where the doctors cut off all the burns. It's incredibly painful. It's torture. This was, the Soviet Union was collapsing. They were saving their heavy narcotics and drugs for the people who were terminal. Sergey, unbeknownst to me, had nothing. And I went and he committed. And I committed with him. And I stood with him, put my hands on his shoulders, looked at energetically what was happening in his body. I could see the pain flares on his hands, the nervous tissue. I could see the impulses traveling up his arms, but I blocked them at his shoulders. They never got to his brain. He did not feel them. He did not perceive them. And the doctor stopped working and said to me, "Where's your videographer?" Because I was making a documentary of the work. I said, "He's out in the hall." He said, I'll be right back," because the doctor recognized what was happening. And the doctor knew that it was impossible because the man had had no narcotics. I didn't know that. I just was like, okay, he's asked me to come, I'm here. I'll do what I can do. Got it on video. At the end, Jania looked like he just had the best bath and he just looked like a newborn baby. And he just said, "Thank you so much." And I said, "Oh, you're so welcome." And, the day rolled on. When I went back to the director of the burn unit's office, she said, "I've got to tell you what happened today. Sergey, it was Sergey, experienced no pain during the," and I'm like, "That's wonderful. I'm so glad." She said, "No, you don't understand. He had no pain medication going into that procedure. We didn't have any for him. He felt no pain." She said, "I've never seen anything like this in my career. So what you're doing works." You go to your capacity to receive and to give.
That's such an extraordinary gift. And I know, like Dr. David Hawkins, who's not with us anymore, he was one of the authorities on consciousness, and he said he'd go into surgery as a patient and no anesthetic because he would go into awareness. But that's different from what you were just describing. It's honoring who you are. You don't think about it.
No.
You just be.
Right.
And that's what flows through you. And if you get a message, a feeling, or whatever it is, go someplace else now.
Yes.
You honor it.
Move your consciousness. In my courses, I use the metaphor, the analogy of a kaleidoscope, that your consciousness functions like a kaleidoscope. I love kaleidoscopes. I always love them as kids. So you have these little colored chips inside the chambers, in the mirror chambers. And every time you turn the chamber, the design changes. Now, imagine that you're one of those colored chips inside. And that's all you know. That's all you know. But then something happens where one day you feel a connection and you follow the feeling. And that feeling leads you to the hand that is turning the chamber. And then you become aware that that is also you. And now you are turning the kaleidoscope with your consciousness. And you are changing the design. And you are in the design, outside of the design, and creating the design. Okay? That's very simple to understand.
So I've also followed Dee Wallace, and she teaches you are the God of you. Nobody else can have your thoughts. Nobody else can have your feelings. Nobody else can take your actions. And when you get that in you, and live as you were just describing, your life can flow. It doesn't have to be you bumping into walls or bumping up against, I can't do this, or it doesn't make sense.
I would really love it if we all would just make these little micro commitments to find out. And we have to trust, and we have to not judge ourselves. We just have to just check it out. Little micro commitments, micro ones to start. See how it feels. See how you feel. Notice what becomes different that feels good. And I call this way of living life beyond trauma, because so much of what happens on earth is trauma-based. But that isn't the only option that we have.
I teach that suffering is optional. And it's choices. Doesn't mean bad things don't happen to you, but you can suffer and feel the pain. Or when you work with people, are you able to show them how to block the pain for themselves? I mean, I have a technique I do, but yours would be different.
That's the beauty of it. We're all in this together.
Yeah.
Everyone brings what they have. And then to me, I liken again as a simple metaphor, flavors in cooking and cuisine, right? So Ali's recipe for how to do it, her recipe for pasta and noodles would be different than a recipe you'd find in Japan for noodles. Both delicious, both satisfying. No need to compare. In fact, expand your array of choices. Yeah? I love pretty much every cuisine I've ever tasted. Well, expand your array of choices and trust. And I do work with people that way. I was able to teach Sergey before I left, because I only stayed for 6 weeks that first time. I went back 2 consecutive years. I taught him the visualizations. I taught him how to work with that energy with himself. And when I came back the following year, Dr. Garazimova, who was my boss on the ward, she said, I got to tell you, not only did Sergey's hands heal, they healed completely with total function, no loss of function, and no skin grafts. So this is who we are. We just need to allow micro commitments to the potential to awesome.
I'm wondering how many people walking among us have the gift but don't know it, don't use it for themselves, don't share it, and it's just because they don't have the awareness. So I'm so grateful you're here today so people can awaken to what they don't know is there. I got to ask you, how did you wind up going to Russia for working with the burn victims and the children with cancer? That's not the usual path for healers.
Total synchronicity, complete synchronicity. One thing led to another. It began simply for me. I mean, I had the awakening, and I was trying to catch up to how to integrate that tremendous amount of, it was a tremendous amount of energy that came through me, tremendous. And I had to allow time for my body to adapt, to be able to not get sick myself, because it was a lot of energy. But I was attending this one workshop at Omega Institute, and I was in an exercise with a guy named Ray, and we were doing a presence exercise, just whoops, eye gazing, sorry for that. And that's my next appointment. And he had a huge baseball-sized neuroma on his wrist. And he just, it was just there. It was part of him. And so we do this eye gazing exercise together. We're just looking at each other, gazing deep, soul to soul. And then the exercise was over. And I left to go get a cup of tea. Because again, I had felt a really big expansion when I was in that exercise with him. And I needed to just get grounded, have a cup of tea, use the bathroom, yada, yada. I come back and Ray comes running over to me. He's, look. And I'm like, what? The neuroma was completely, it had just disappeared. And he knew, and I knew, that had happened as a result of the exercise. And I looked at him and I said, Ray, that's fantastic. I'm so happy for you. How about we just keep that between you and I for the rest of the workshop, shall we? Right? Then I met someone at that workshop. She could kind of grok what was going on. She came up to me. She said, hey, I'd like to have schedule some one-on-one sessions with you. Can I do that? I'm from Virginia, but I can stay a couple extra days. I said, sure. She came. I did some energy work with her. She said, hey, I know some people back in Virginia, and I think you should come to Virginia and teach a workshop. I'll get the people together. I know a great space. I'll take care of everything. Will you come? I said, sure. Yeah. So he took care of all of that. Meantime, another woman had asked me, she'd become sick. She was supposed to present a paper at an international conference, and she got sick. And I didn't know her that well, but she knew I was interested in health and wellness. She said, would you go to Richmond, Virginia and deliver my paper for me? I said, sure. Oh, okay. Drive to Virginia. And in the meantime, the information had come from within, and I needed to type out a one sheet of my desire to work with burn patients. And then I really wanted to create a collaboration with physicians and have the opportunity to collaborate and to see whether energy, medicine, healing worked. This time, Dolores Kruger was doing her thing, but she was very limited in what she could do. So I met this one guy, Dr. Sasha Goldberg. And he looked at the paper. He says, oh, this is very interesting. He said, sure. If you get yourself to Moscow, I'm the director of City Hospital number 70. You can come to my hospital. You can work with the patients. You can teach classes in my hospital. Like, sure. Okay. He gave me his card, right? So things just one thing after another, after another, after another. Mickey put the workshop together in Virginia. I went down, did the workshop, had met all these wonderful people, teaching them the basics of energy healing from my perspective. I walked away with several $1,000s. And then my connection with the paper that I delivered, and by the way, Deepak Chopra was on that panel. I met Deepak Chopra that day in Virginia. She's like, well, I'm working with these midwives in Russia, and I know people. And maybe you could go to City Hospital. Okay, we just have to get you there. I'm like, all right. I got my passport. And then I found, because this was still in the days of, Cold War wasn't quite over yet. And I got a journalist visa so I could go. I just applied for a journalist visa, and I got one, and I got my passport. And then I took 7 cartons of stuff for the maternity wards for the midwives, and I get to Finnair on the day of my departure, and I have my luggage, and I have 7 boxes, huge boxes, diapers, formula, plastic pants, whatever. And I put it up on the counter, and the lady at Finnair goes, what? I'm like, oh, this is humanitarian effort. You know what's going on in the Soviet Union right now? It's collapsing. They don't have anything. This is humanitarian supplies. It has to go. She says, okay, commit. Got on the plane, get to Moscow, asking permission as we're coming in for the landing. I'm asking permission of the people of Russia, of Moscow and the Soviet Union. Do I have permission to do this work with you? I have to ask permission. I can't come in and just assume I'm going to do it. So that worked. I spent, someone was met by a stranger, didn't know her. Go, there's an apartment, there's a place for me to sleep. And then I went into 10 days of about 7 to 10 days of meditation, while people around me made phone calls and made contacts and called everyone they knew. Interpreter showed up, driver showed up. Then I got the introduction at Moscow Institute of Diagnosis and Surgery to work with Alexei and Arkady to work with the kids with cancer. And then I met Dr. Harasov, and he took me to Sklifosovsky, and I met Dr. Garazmova, and he said to me, I was waiting out in the hall. He said, I'm going to go in and talk with her, see if I can get you in here. Now, I'm going to come and get you. When you go in, don't tell her you never worked with burns. I'm sitting there with the interpreter, and I was like, I can't do that. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, right? Well, I don't worry about it. I get in. Here's Dr. Garismova. She has her samovar going. We have this fabulous cup of tea. We talked about all kinds of things. She never once asked me. So I wasn't conflicted. Boom, can you start Monday? And there we were. And that's how it happened.
It's critical to say yes. And as you say, to say yes with your whole body, because the universe will lead you. It will take care of you. There's so much I want to ask you, and we're running a little short of time. I want to be sure I mention your book. Could you briefly take us on an adventure of your book? And all of this will be in the show notes, but just an overview of that, because I've never had anybody as a guest who works with DNA.
DNA piece is important. And what I've just described to you, that full body yes actually sparks through your genetic code. That is one way. You must know that your body knows your life purpose. It is encoded in your DNA. It is not in your mind. The love dub, love dub, love dub, love dub. Your blood keeps your DNA replicating and functioning and alive. It's not your mind that does that. And it is through your DNA that your life purpose will reveal itself to you. And when you say yes, it will take you where you need to go. And you will meet the people that you need to meet. And you will develop the skills. You will have the natural interest. And you will go through bumps and trials and mishaps, but it'll work out in the end. So in my first book, this is volume 1, I talk about my own journey, self-healing. I healed myself with secondary infertility before my awakening. I healed my younger son of juvenile rheumatoid arthritis in 4 months before my awakening because I had to have some practice. Yeah? Okay. So my book describes that, and it describes to me the 12 spaces on the living spiral, which is your DNA, the 12 spaces of awareness. And so I go through the first several really important ones, and in the book too, I will go through the rest. So there you go, Ali. That's a little bit of description. I would love for people to check it out.
That's fantastic. And you've got so many beautiful messages with us. Is there one that you haven't shared yet that you'd like to leave with us today?
We're in a very powerful time. We are in challenges. We are being exposed to things that we are being invited to bring into our bodies. I want you to know that you have the ability to commit to your health, your wholeness, that's based really on your divine blueprint. No matter what you feel you are faced as a choice, you are able to do this. This is your divine right. And so I am working with people now because it's critical time on cellular sovereignty and immune system support, because we all need that right now. And so much of how we respond to what's going on in our environment is based on our DNA. And it is also based on mutations of our DNA that have been with the human being now for far too long. And one of my assignments and gifts here is to relieve human beings of that level of suffering.
Keep your eye out for the Burn Survivors Summit. It will be live April 23, 24, and 25. If you know anybody who would like to contribute, be sure you get in touch with Anaiis. Thank you so much for the work that you do. And as I said, all your links will be in the show notes. And I want to remind everybody to check out our website, where you'll be able to see the video as well as the audio. And the video always has some extras in it. And you can also very easily leave a review. and join our Facebook group where you can ask questions and make a friend, and also see any special offers that are happening. Be sure that you check out the link. Actually download the affirmations guide, the quick guide, and also take a look at that special offer, because it's all about asking the questions how to be happy, healthy, and secure. I wish you a week filled with blessings, and remember to enjoy, capital I and capital JOY, every moment, because life happens with it.
Thank you, Ollie. This has been so much fun. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and to have a connection with your tribe.
Thank you. Thank you so much for keep doing your work and being you.